Welcome to another edition of the Will Be Blood Fight Show. I'm your host, Dave Dwayne. Apologize, I haven't done a video. This is actually my first video since the new year started. So happy New Year's to everybody. Hey, thanks for all the emails and all the support that we've been getting at the willbebloodfightshow.com and Leaving in the Ring radio show. For those of you that already know and the ones that don't know, we do got a new website and it's completely dedicated to the radio show, leavinginthering.com. I'll put a link here so you all go check out the blogs and the articles that we got over there and the contents that we pretty much put on Leaving the Ring radio show. Let's get into this upcoming Saturday Night Fight on HBO, which is a pretty good card, an interesting card in my opinion. You got Juan Manuel Lopez versus vsLuevano, and then you got Roger Mtgwa versus Gamboa. Let's first go with Lopez. Now, if you didn't have a chance to watch Lopez versus Mtgwa, then you missed out on possibly the fight of the year. It was a back and forth war. We saw a lot of things that a lot of people were wondering and questioning about Juanma, being that this guy's been able to blow everybody out of the water when he steps in the ring with them. He's been able to outclass them. But then he steps in with Roger Mtgwa, and that wasn't the case. If anything, it was survivor mode for Lopez. But Lopez pulled through, and one of the things that I think a lot of us fight fans, and if you've been following me, you've heard me say this on video and on the radio show, that if you could buy stocks on this kid, I'd buy a bunch of it because I think he's the real deal. The only question that I had about him was, how will he react when somebody can take his punch? Does he fold? Does he fall apart? Does he give up? What? And we saw the absolute opposite when he faced Mtgwa. We saw the heart of Lopez. He, went in there. He did it when he needed to do. Yeah, did he fight a stupid fight? Of course he did, but he's still young, and he was still able to hang in there. Even when I thought that he was going to be blown out, but that he was probably going to say, you know what, forget it. Even in times when he was in trouble with Mtgwa, I thought maybe, the smart thing to do was go to a knee. But his pride was there, and it kept him through the fight. Did he get unnecessary punishment? Of course. If you're a hardcore fight fan, you like to see those type of things out of your fighter. You like to find out, hey, can they just go through the thick and thin? Is it going to be possible when the storm really hits? Are they going to be able to weather it? And that's what we saw with Lopez. Now Lopez is stepping in with another seasoned fighter, which is vsLuevano. But in my opinion, they're giving Lopez a little bit of a break. And the reason I'm saying that, because, Top Rank is obviously the promoter of Lopez, and he's seen vsLuevano as a little bit less brawler and more of a technician coming into this bout against Lopez, being that Mtgwa is completely opposite of Luevano. And what I mean by that is the punching power is really not a factor there. Luevano is not a guy that has this power that can just change a fight automatically. He's a good technician, a good counter puncher. He's a good all-around boxer, but he's got a lot of problems. He's got stamina problems. He's been hurt before. Like I said, he doesn't have a punch to keep you humble. So that all kind of surrounds Lopez in a good way, meaning that, hey, listen, this guy kind of tires out within the 5th or 6th round. He kind of blows all his load out there. I'll be able to attack him. Don't have to be really too concerned on him returning. I'm getting hurt, unless something was left that night with Mtgwa. But I don't see that happening. I see him being able to, really kind of catch up with them and gather up those rounds, but obviously do exactly what he's been able to do to his previous opponents, which is stop them in early, mid rounds, or even the early rounds, And that's where Steve's got to kind of be careful too, is because, he's not only going to find out if this lion still has the claws, being that he was in with Mtgwa and maybe some of his fangs are stuck on Mtagwa's back still, but he's going to have to really get in there and see if the scratch is still there and the heart is still there, which I believe it's still going to be there. And I think the scratch is going to be more of a bite. Kind of look at, Steven having his moments in the beginning, because Juanma's going to be a little questioning himself, a little bit stepping in the ring. But I think as soon as he gets that rhythm back, which would be at the end of the first round, you're going to see the old Juanma come back and probably just, do his work, be his technician and catch him with that real famous right hook and then finish him off with his straight left. And I'm going to see, and you've seen, like I said, Steven has been hurt, he's been dropped. So this time around, he's been able to survive because the finisher was not that good of a finisher. But being that he's in with a guy that knows how to finish, a guy that won't stop until he's finished, he's going to have a lot of problems. So I see Wama just being victorious in this fight, possibly stopping him in the mid rounds. Now Roger Mtgwa, we just talked about him right now, stepping in with Wama, and how much of a great fight he had between those two warriors, and how entertaining he brought it to the table. Honestly, a lot of people didn't know a whole lot about Mtgwa, and if you don't know a lot about him, you might want to archive some of his old fights, you know, the fights before Wama. And this guy is an absolute warrior. Any guy that's coming from Africa, you got to know that these guys come to the States or go anywhere in the world coming with their heart in their hands. These guys do not like to just walk in the park and look at the scenery. These guys like to do everything in the landscaping that can get themselves involved in. So saying that already, Mtgwa stepping in with a guy that a lot of people are saying, yo, this guy has got all the goods to being a great fighter, but he's got some questions around his head, which is Gamboa. He's got the chinny chin, you know. Sometimes he can be a little too reckless, you know. He's got tons of speed, but sometimes his balance could be a little off. Now Gamboa's really, honestly, you got to look at his regimen of fighters that he's been facing. It's a little shallow. Mtgwa is really a major leap for Gamboa. You know, and the thing about Mtgwa is this guy is just not just a contender. This guy is a possible champion. Just the only thing is he's got two other guys that are already labeled as future champions. You know, so Mtgwa's in for the best. You know, and being that he was with Wamba, a lot of people could question it. Well, what if he left himself in that ring too with Lopez? And I'm going to say no, because it was a little bit different. Mtgwa was used to fighting fights like that. Mtgwa was used to being always in the grind in bouts like that. So it's really where Gamboa was at. Now, Gamboa obviously is the opposite of Wama. Wama is more of a technically sound, down the pipe type of fighter, where Gamboa is very orthodox. You know, he throws punches from really weird angles. He's got a lot of speed, you know, and he's a lefty too, just like Wama, but he's just a little bit different. You know, he knows how to throw from right here from the hip. You know, you really don't know where he's going to set it up. The thing though is that what I don't like about Gamboa, he doesn't have a jab to really hold anybody off, you know, and he's been acceptable of getting dropped early in his rounds, you know, and he's easy to hit at times, because when he does get that fire lit up inside of him, he tends to open up when he decides to trade. Now Mtgwa too, a little bit, doesn't have a whole lot of zest in his punches, but he's got enough. He's got enough to stun you. He's got enough to outwork you, you know. But Mtgwa too gets a little careless in the boxing range, okay? He can open up a little bit too much. He could be a little too wild, and that could be some little points there for Gamboa to try to get over on him and knock him out. Now the thing about knocking out Mtgwa, it's almost nearly, you know, impossible unless Wama had did enough chipping on that jaw that when he steps in this Saturday with Gamboa, that all is left is just a little bit of a chip where Gamboa can kind of succeed on that. But I don't see that happening. Being that Roger's been a tough guy for some time, I see his chin is going to be sturdy enough to take some of the big punches from Gamboa. Now the question is going to be raising on Gamboa is, can he withstand an all-assault from Mtgwa? Can he hold him off? Is he going to lose stamina? Is he going to be able to, you know, control the ring generalship? Is he going to be able to maintain his pace and not get overexcited where he overspends energy and tires out? Because that's where Mtgwa can be. The good thing for Gamboa is if he does throw all his load out and he gets tired and he does get hurt, Mtgwa has never been known to be a great finisher. He doesn't know how to finish. He doesn't seem to know how that killer instinct, because he's always at that one gear, which is going forward, throwing punches. The good thing for Mtgwa though too is he likes to throw that overhand right, which is actually a money punch for himself against this lefty, because just like Wama had no defense for the overhand right, neither does Gamboa. But where does it lead for both of these guys? You know what? I'm on the fence on this fight, because out of those two bouts, Mtgwa and Gamboa, to me, is the most intriguing. To me, that is a big, major bout there. To me, that's a very competitive bout. Contender versus contender. Two guys that really, honestly, can pull it off. One guy can overwork the other guy where, you know what, he ends up folding in the later rounds and doesn't do enough to take the rounds or be able to knock out the guy that keeps coming forward, and that's Mtgwa, okay? But This guy over here, he does have stunning power. He does have the speed. He does have good fast feet. Now, all he needs to do is maintain that. All he needs to do is learn some ring generalship. But can he learn it on that Saturday night against a guy that only has one gear? Mtgwa. You know, I think a lot of people have been waiting for Gamboa to lose the fight because of his fighting style and being so reckless, but we all love it. We love the way he fights because he leaves everything in the ring. But, you know, on this one, I'm going to have to go on a limb on this one. I'm going to say Mtgwa pulls it off. I have to say he might be able to upset Gamboa a little bit on this fight. He has all the ingredients to do it. He has all the heart to really honestly upset Gamboa, where Gamboa is still kind of learning, in my opinion, even though he's got all that amateur background, but for some reason he's still learning how to be a professional. He's still learning how to maintain himself and pace himself. That's the problem I have with Gamboa, but Gamboa can't pull it off. He can't pull it off because, like I said, he's got a lot of experience, amateur and coming in the pros now. He does have the experience to be a good champion, great champion, but on this particular fight, he's got to fight a completely different fight than he's been fighting everybody else on. I'm your host, Dave, doing this. This was another edition of The Will Be Blood.